Howdy, y'all. So the preview for today's game is a little bit later than normal. I'm gonna throw out the reason why. We just had a nice about 2 hour long Zoom call with subscribers on Patreon, and it was a pretty fun experience. So yeah, um, if you were there, that was fun. And we'll do that again. And to the point where by the end of it, I thought, it says we're only doing this once a month, but I don't know. Maybe do that more than that. Because it's nice to be able to socialize. I don't socialize with people very often right now. Okay, all that aside, Vegas and Dallas get started tonight, and tomorrow night Philadelphia and Tampa Bay are going to get started. Now the good news is, depending on where you are, anyways, you may see this as good news or bad news. The games will start at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Not Easter, Eastern. I'll add an N. Totally changes the meaning if it's 8 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, Eastern. No back-to-backs in this round, so it's alternating nights, and that's what I figured would happen, and it does. So we're probably 2 weeks away from seeing who's going to be in the finals, or maybe less. And once we know who's in the finals, I would think probably no days off between the conference finals and the finals either. And it's the same time for every game until next Sunday. Game 4 between Tampa and the Islanders will be the first time we see a game that's not at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. So reliable, same time every single game. And that one next Sunday is at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern, I believe is the start time for that one. But we'll get to that. So Vegas and Dallas, very little time to rest up, and they're right back at it now. We'll see what happens. So moving on from that, news of the day kind of stuff, because again, I did the preview for that series yesterday. Not much has changed since yesterday. We know it'll be Leonard and it'll be Hudobin, and we'll see where they go from there. But with news of the day stuff, it's noteworthy that for the Philadelphia Flyers, who have some questions to answer before they go into next season, Konechny. Travis Konechny, no goals in the return. I thought he played well, but not fantastic. And I didn't think Konechny looked as good as he did during the regular season. Now, was he 100%? We'll see. Again, there are a lot of people that are banged up. And I thought last night, I believe it was, they were quoting Barry Trotz and basically saying anybody who's not banged up at this point in the playoffs probably isn't making the effort. I'm paraphrasing. It's around what the message was. And so I would not be surprised if Konechny wasn't 100% and if others on the Flyers weren't 100%. But that takes nothing away from what the Islanders have been able to do in getting to the conference finals for the first time since 1993. It's been a long time, hasn't it? So award winners are going to start being announced today. I didn't see this yesterday. I apologize. It wasn't in yesterday's news video. Where before each game, they're going to announce an award winner. And it's going to be that way right up until next Sunday, the 13th. And then they're going to have a show during the finals that Las Vegas is hosting, where they're going to have the Calder, Hart, Norris, Lindsay, and Vezina Trophy winners to be announced. It'll be interesting to see how that works and what they've got planned, what they have in mind. But we're going to start having award winners to discuss the following day in News of the Day videos every day. And then the more important, well, not more, I'll say more important. The more newsworthy awards, the ones that we all debate about endlessly, will be awarded during the finals at some point. And of course, we'll have days off without hockey during the Stanley Cup finals as well. But I think this is interesting. And you know what? Seeing this, I thought we could do an award winners thing just during a regular, season minus the pandemic as well. You could do that during the Stanley Cup finals where you're going to announce certain winners and then have the award show after. The award show tends to drag in spots. It does. When they have the NHL awards, there are certain awards that we're excited for, and those ones are held for last because that's how award shows work. But it does seem to drag in spots. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. Seattle. So Seattle's on the board. They've started selling season tickets virtually. So these are people who've been waiting 2 years for their chance to pick their seats. And basically it's you can go through and pick them online, or you can do it on a Zoom call with a representative for the Seattle franchise as well, where they'll help you pick your seats and all that. And so they're in the process. Seattle, a year from now, we will be talking about what players they might get and all that, unless the season gets bumped forward. And this is where things are going to get really interesting, is when we talk about next season and what that's going to look like, and how this is all going to work. One difference between the NHL and other leagues is that if it all has to be played in one country or the other, it gets really, really difficult for hockey. Baseball, you have the Blue Jays. Blue Jays end up playing in the States. They play in the States. The NBA, you have the Raptors. And I know Toronto loves the Raptors, but if we ended up in a situation where, because of government restrictions, border restrictions, the Toronto Raptors have to play south of the border for a year, that's the thing. They have that. There's way too many teams to do that with hockey, where you'd be sticking 7 hockey teams from Canada and the States. Not very likely. And if we're in a situation where they're able to have, say, I've mentioned before, AEW, 500 fans in attendance, it does make a difference for watching a wrestling event when you have the fans there, rather than wrestlers cheering at ringside. So if we're seeing something like that in hockey, where you can have, say, 1,000, 1,500 in attendance, 2,000, something along those lines, everybody spaced out, it definitely changes the whole atmosphere and the feel of it. And we'll see how all of this turns out. I'm going to be interested to see what the NHL does cook up when we get there, and how border restrictions work, because it's going to be more difficult for hockey than it is for other leagues, as I said. Now, coaching jobs. So the Capitals have kind of ticked off all the boxes. They've interviewed Peter Laviolette. Now they've interviewed Mike Babcock and Gerard Gallant, which has 2 L's in it. Man. All right, so I'm just going to put that. I'm going to fix that. Put that there. So Gerard Gallant's been interviewed as well, and that kind of ticks all the boxes. They're looking for somebody who has experience at the NHL level. Laviolette, Babcock, Gallant, they all work. And you know what? For all the negativity around Mike Babcock and his time with Toronto and how that all worked out with Toronto, and I get it, the reality is Babcock's still a pretty solid coach overall. So yeah, we'll see what the Capitals do. But I don't think we've seen the last of Mike Babcock as an NHL coach. But Gallant would work as well. And then whoever's left over of those 3 guys, the other 2 I would think would be high on the list for Seattle, depending on what they're going to do, especially if Gerard Gallant's still there. I would think Seattle, just for the storylines that would provide, right? Him coaching another expansion team. So that's been done, apparently, and also done. The Arizona Coyotes apparently have interviewed Pierre Maguire about the GM job there. And I'll go ahead and allow people to make whatever statement on that they want to. I will say this for Pierre Maguire. He does know his stuff when it comes to various hockey players. He does seem to understand the intricacies of the game and how it's played. And he does attend a lot of hockey games. So he's clearly a guy who you could say has professionally scouted a lot of hockey. And I would not be surprised to see him offered a job of some sort. If he ended up being the general manager in Arizona, boy, would that make things interesting with Arizona immediately. So we'll see what happens. Again, and I know there are people, myself included, I get aggravated sometimes with his announcing as well. But the reality is, he does know his hockey. And so, aggravated or not with some of the commentary, it's still, this is a guy who knows his hockey, and he may end up being a good general manager. And the last issue I wanted to talk about from the news of the day, and this came out yesterday as well, that there are bubble problems. So the idea was this: the conference finals, families fly in, and they're in the bubble and they're fine. Well, for Canadian families, they're fine. Canadian families, they can go to Edmonton and, go through the process with the NHL and be admitted into the bubble. For families flying in from outside of the country, there is some debate between the Canadian government and the NHL on quarantine process and how that's going to work. So there's some concerns. Of course, a lot of players have said, you know what, it's fine. The bubble life isn't really something we're looking at for our families anyways. So there are probably a limited number of families that are coming in for these 4 teams. But we'll see what kind of compromise happens or how this ends up working. Because again, if they have to quarantine for 14 days, well, that's the end of that round. So there is legit no reason for them to even fly in. Because then all you have left is the Stanley Cup Finals. Half the families be going home without actually seeing a game, and the finals can probably be played out in 10 or 11 days. So we'll see how many families actually come in and what that final total is, but it'll be interesting to see how that works. And again, thinking about next year and how next year is going to work, these are the things the NHL wants to figure out now, because next season we don't know yet how that's going to look. But with this might be one of those things that the NHL says, yeah, we've got to figure out next year how that's going to work, because players are going to want to see families and whatnot. And if we do bubble cities again, and maybe this is an example of why we can't, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.